Okay, thank you. Welcome to the meeting of the Executive Cabinet Member Leaders Portfolio, held in the presence of sportspersons from other groups on the Council. The first item on the agenda is the monitoring of Executive Cabinet Member decisions, which has been circulated. Are there any queries on that from anybody? Councillor Wilkinson?
Yeah, become as no surprise, I will mention West Horton Town Hall. I know there's been some progress. We've had an email which is progress. I'll put it as that. I'll be fair about it. It is progress. Still not happy about the level of information. I'll be quite open about it. We've had another email recently which says the upper floor is being ripped out, etc., and then we might have a think about what we're doing. We've had one meeting, which was some time ago. Mr. Clough actually gave some very interesting information, which cheered me up no end. And I would just like to reiterate, whilst you're here, Nick, we would like to, have another meeting with all members so we can ask questions. I'll go no further than that. It would be useful that members can say to officers involved, what's this? Why are you doing it? What's this going? When's this going to happen? Etc. And we can have a polite chat, because sending emails and getting half an answer isn't the best way forward on this. And I'd just like us. We were doing well. I don't want us going backwards.
Thanks, David. I do take your point that there has been some progress in terms of the lack of information that local councillors were getting. And I did see the email that was sent through, I think last week, giving you that update. Paul Whittingham, would you like to respond?
Yeah, thanks, Leader. So we'll there's a further update due out before the end of June. So we'll make sure that as much as possible is covered on that. But I'll work with Justin and look at when the best possible date for a meeting with members would be. Because we need to have enough information to be able to talk you through it. So we'll certainly get another update as has been promised before the end of June, after because obviously all the contract negotiations are in place with F. Parkinson. So we need a little bit more work on that before we do that update to you, and then we can work out when we'll be able to sit down with the ward members to give you and have a face-to-face meeting to talk you through it all.
Right.
That's okay.
Thanks, Paul. What I'd like you to do, what I think would be helpful, is if a meeting is set towards the end of June and the written update is given prior to that meeting, so that ward councillors have that information that they can read prior to the physical meeting, so that they are able to then ask pertinent follow-up questions based on the information they've been given. I think that'd be quite helpful. So in that order, written update meeting.
Yeah, we'll do, Leader. It could be, and I'll certainly update members. It could be that with the schedule of work, that it might creep into July for the actual meeting, but then we can give the update by the end of June and have the meeting as early as possible in July.
Yeah, I mean, a week or so isn't an issue. I think the 6 members being forearmed with the latest update prior to the meeting is key, so that they can then look into that and then ask follow-up questions.
Could I just with indulgence, if information could be also copied into the town council? The last email we had was sent to the town council. The one previous wasn't, which other members of the Town Council didn't see. There are other, lots of other people on that who are not borough councillors. We do mention it, but I think it's only respectful that they know, up front, not second hand.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't see any difficulty in that.
Thanks.
Okay. Thanks very much. Thanks. So the next item on the agenda, get my agenda up, is the Directorate of Place Finance Report final outturn from the previous financial year. Janet.
Thank you very much, Leader. So this report contains the financial year-end update for the Directorate of Place. The final outturn position for the Directorate of Place was an overspend of £325,000. For this portfolio, it's an underspend of £46,000. There are three significant variances highlighted within the report. The budgeted savings for 24-25 for the Directorate was £862,000, which have all been achieved. Approval is sought within the report for a revised phasing of the 25-27 savings programme, and that's detailed in section 3.3 of the report. For this portfolio, the commercialisation proposal is proposed to be reprofiled. This report is also seeking approval for two options for the 25-27 savings programme. For this portfolio, there's only one item which forms part of the cross-cutting option, £104,000, and it's titled Review of Agency, Overtime and Vacancies. After the deletion of a vacant post which falls under another portfolio, there's a balance of £32,000. It's proposed that this is found by reducing budgets across the Directorate to reflect the actual spend position in areas such as subscriptions, contract management and overtime. The Directorate does not have any general reserves. Capital expenditure for the Directorate was 40 million. The balance of available funding has been transferred as slippage into the next financial year. The main reason for the slippage is around phasing of new schemes, and it isn't always clear initially the phasing of them schemes, so we tend to build it in year one in the capital programme. So we're undertaking a piece of work with scheme managers to better understand the phasing of a scheme up front so we can build it into the correct years within the capital programme. Key financial findings can be found on page 3 and service-specific findings can be found on Appendix 1. The Executive Cabinet member is asked to note the contents of the report and approve the recommendations in section 11, which are applicable to this portfolio. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions from members? Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Nick. I'm going to repeat what I said last night at Council Actors at the Man's meeting. And it is that the report's very good. I'm not going to dispute that in any way. The information is clear if you're a member or an officer. I'll repeat what I said last night. Unfortunately, the world has changed from facts and figures and honesty to a world of liars, cheat, con men, peddlers of false information, etc. I'll be polite about it. And I still think that in local government, we have to try and make it as clear as possible how money is spent. And I know there's vast amount of information out there where I get these silly comments from people like, there's wrong going on and all this part of it. I said, oh no, it's there. There's a piece on the website. Go and have a look at it. I think we still have to try and make it as clear and as simple as for people to understand how local government money is spent. You'll have seen some of the comments today on an item about the lighting in the town centre. Yes, well, some of them are bizarre to say the least. Factually incorrect one person, but that's another matter because she peddles that kind of stuff. I just think we need to try and wherever possible to simplify so people can pick it up and look at it or explain it on the website. This information is here. This type of information is there because, like I said, we're now dealing with people have no regard for honesty or truth and peddle lies and con people. That's my opinion. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, David. I think it's probably for me to comment on that. I'm not sure what sources we have, Janet, in terms of a kind of a very basic. This is the financial situation. An easy to reach source. The council tax bills that come out have quite a very easy to follow diagrams there about where income comes from, what income is spent on, etc. And I think it's that type of very simplistic thing that we probably need to direct people more to, and that's maybe a discussion at CLT and with the comms team as well. But David is absolutely correct. It's a different world. Probably started from over the water, actually. I would say Council Hudson were facts are no longer facts, and political party that isn't represented on this council claim that we don't have audited accounts at the council. Of course we have audited accounts. Of course we do, and it's complete stupidity and dangerous to say otherwise. In terms of some of the comments on Bolton News, I'm sure you would take my advice. I wouldn't bother, because I've said it often before. If those people were representative of the electorate of this town, there wouldn't be a single councillor present on this meeting elected. And we all know it, there wouldn't be an independent, a Liberal, a Labour or a Conservative councillor. So I take heart in the fact that those people are not representative of the people of Bolton, many of whom have multiple accounts as well. So point taken, and it's leave with me, and I'll have a chat with others, and let's see how we can kind of improve that access to information, which you're right is there, but there is reams of it. You're absolutely correct. So unless there's any further comments, I will note that report. Thanks.
Sorry, Leader.
Approve it as well.
Sorry?
Sorry, there are some elements of it that you need to approve.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. The other comments I wanted to make, I did actually want to make a comment there, which was in terms of the overspends, planning, licensing, markets. I'm pleased to see that there are plans, departmental plans to address that, so that doesn't creep into other years. Okay, so reading the recommendations, all of those that are noted, to note the. Do you want me to read them out, Vicky?
No, you don't need to. You can just agree.
Okay, I note and approve what is recommended on the paper, which is a publicly accessible document for people to read if they wish. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the Directorate of Corporate Resources Finance Report 24-25 final outturn.
Thank you, Leader. So this report contains the financial year-end position for the Directorate of Corporate Resources. The final outturn position for the Directorate is an underspend of £26,000. For this portfolio, there's an underspend of £34,000. Just to note for members that this is in preparation of the savings programme for 25-27. The budgeted savings for 24-25 were 2.1 million, of which all were achieved earlier on in the financial year. Approval is sought within this report for revised phasing for the 25-27 savings programme, details of which you can be found in section 3.3 of this report. For this portfolio, we're requesting approval of the transformation savings to be moved wholly into 26-27. The direct does not contain any general reserves. Key financial findings can be found on page 3, and service-specific findings can be found on Appendix A. The Executive Cabinet member is asked to note the contents of this report and to approve the recommendations in section 11 of this report, which are applicable to this portfolio. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks. Any questions? Nice to see that my personal portfolio has an underspend. Well done to others involved in prudent management of that. So in terms of the recommendations, similar to the previous one, to note the positions and approve the various phasing and revisions, etc., contained within that recommendation. So thank you very much. The next item on the agenda, there is a couple of series of HR changes, review, creation of policies, one dignity at work, hybrid working policy, home working guidance, facilities agreements and constitutions. And Jane, will you be taking us through this, or is it Dom?
Thank you, Leader. This is the report that sets out the changes to, hopefully quite straightforward, to a couple of our policies following a review. The first one being hybrid working, which we introduced in 2023, and we committed to a review of how that was working because there were new arrangements after the pandemic. The second one is a policy that was introduced in was amended in 2017 regarding facilities agreements, so all our arrangements for the trade unions, and finally to note our position on the new legislation regarding protection for workers from harassment. And I've just asked Dawn, my colleague who's kindly done all the work on this, to give you a headline overview of the details. Thanks, Dawn.
Jay. I'll just run through them one at a time, if that's okay. So in terms of the dignity at work policy, we did have quite a number of years ago an anti-harassment policy, but that was replaced and subsumed in the grievance procedure. However, new legislation came into force late last year, which said that employers needed to have a standalone policy, and the legislation particularly focuses on sexual harassment. But what we decided to do in discussion with the trade unions was look at all forms of bullying and harassment. So although we have included the legislation around sexual harassment, we are really clear within the new policy that all forms of bullying and harassment are unacceptable. So since the legislation came in, we've issued a dignity at work statement, which has gone out across the council. We've also had some posters published, which should be in all council buildings, stating our zero tolerance of any bullying and harassment of our staff. We've got some training that's been arranged, some mandatory training for managers and staff, which starts later this month, on bullying and harassment as well. So it all ties into the policy and the authority's commitment to having no bullying and harassment in the organisation, and where it is identified, to dealing with it quickly and appropriately. So happy to take any questions if there are any on that policy.
Treat this as a single item with I think there's 3 changes there. Councillor Wilkinson.
Just a couple of things. One in relation to home working. We're all at home, well, most of us are, apart from the people that are at work. But it is useful, and it is a very useful tool in terms of accessibility and things like that. We'd all have to come in for a meeting for Nick, you know, I mean, so it's great for us. What is the benefits and improvements for the authority where people are working at home? Because there are those benefits, in a sense, financial and other related things. And I think when we say about home working, there are some people who go, home working, it's terrible, they're sat at home doing, you know. And I think we need to be clear about what, for want of a better phrase, is the commercial benefits of people working from home, and if it's feasible to put that information, make it available, you know, have some background knowledge, because as I talked about earlier, there may be some people down that route. In terms of harassment, are we going to have almost an annual checklist against these related issues? Because I think for members, and I know officers will be dealing with it, but I think for members, I think we want to, I would, to know that we have a good workforce and a good working environment, because, you know, I've seen some terrible working environments in my working life, and I would hope that would not take place. But I think it'd be useful if some, benchmarking, whatever you want to call it, is available around that. And for a want of a worse thing is, what is the position for members of staff in relation to any potential bullying by councillors? I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I may, sometimes people may say something or be a bit terse in an email, but the world is changing, shall I say. I'll leave it at that. And I'm concerned that maybe in a bit of time that there may be people who may not respect the code of conduct and may not respect a good working environment. So I would just like us to, I'd like to know what is the protections which are available or need to be addressed. Thanks very much.
Thanks. Some good questions there, Jen. Dal.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just go back to the hybrid working policy, and I think if within, I think it's on page 4 or 5 of the policy document that was embedded in the report. There's, I think there's probably about 10 different benefits of hybrid working outlined, and that's quite a good summary. Which I can send through to you separately if that would be helpful. But it talks around obviously the well-being advantages in terms of keeping up with recruitment and retention of staff, flexible working, especially for working parents, the ability to reduce our office estate over time because people are hot desking more, and also that kind of well-being aspect in terms of reduction to absence. There's also climate change and the kind of reduced commute to say, for example, we're running regional meetings, we're losing less time with staff travelling to meetings where Teams meetings can be enabled. So that's quite a good kind of summary of the benefits as a starting point. John, do you want to talk through some of the risk assessment work and the posters that we've been doing on the harassment? Because that might help in regard to how we kind of display our zero tolerance to any harassment, and then we'll cover the members' point afterwards.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. What we've done as part of the development of the policies, we've worked really closely with the health and safety team to develop a risk assessment around bullying and harassment in workplaces and in different environments as well. So if we think about us working in the town hall, we're in a very different environment there, for example, to staff who were supporting evening functions in the Albert Halls, or to staff in the one-stop shop who've got members of public coming in who could potentially be abusive to them. So what we've done is we've developed a risk assessment, and as part of the mandatory managers training, they are going to be required to complete that risk assessment for their own service area and then go back to the service area and discuss that with the staff and put whatever measures are in place to address any issues that they've identified within that risk assessment. And obviously they can contact us, they can contact health and safety to support them in that if they have identified any issues. So hoping it's really going to get people thinking about the different issues. In terms of incidents and the number of incidents and things like that, it's not something we've captured previously, but there's more and more case law and legislation coming in all the time with regards to protected characteristics and monitoring of and that kind of thing. So that's something we're looking at the moment in terms of how we can capture that information, because capturing things like incidents of harassment or bullying complaints by staff by things such as gender, sexuality, things like that isn't something we've ever done before. So we're looking at how we can capture that going forwards as well. It's an ever-moving feast. So
thanks very much.
Just to
code of conduct, Jane, or maybe Vicky could assist with this. Helen's with us.
Yeah, I think Helen's going to come in.
Yeah, I think probably Helen.
Thank you, Leader. Turn you on.
I think Councillor Wilson was talking about issues of. I don't think he was suggesting that there's anything happening at the moment, but he was just questioning what the process is in terms of any council harassment for members of staff.
Just having a technical problem with our laptops. Sorry, Vicky's gone into a different room. I've only had one formal complaint about a member from a member of staff in terms of code of conduct, and it was resolved really quickly and easily by the member concerned apologising. It wasn't bullying. It was inappropriate behaviour. Not being respectful, I suppose, to the member of staff concerned. But that's the only one I can remember from a member of staff in the last decade.
Okay, so there is a code of conduct in place. Appreciate your concern. A lot of this, I always taken the view, David, that it's managed effectively, usually within groups. Group leadership usually manage members' conduct effectively, and I take your point that may be something of a challenge potentially in the future. But the other thing to say here is, as part of the localism legislation, I know Jim McMahon, the local minister, has made it absolutely clear that the toothless beasts that are standards committees are going to be given sanction powers. So for the first time, they will be given sanction powers, and this is because of a couple of incidents of members who've got serious criminal convictions not being able to be sanctioned in terms of the accessing town hall facilities and those types of things. So it is something that is probably well overdue. We'll await the details of the legislation. And my final point is just in terms of home working. I've always taken the view that productivity is key. If productivity doesn't fall, particularly for those people who are processing as a key part of their job, then geography isn't really relevant. And then there's all the other factors about regular meetings with managers, informal supervision, but just being in the proximity of other colleagues can significantly help productivity as well. So I think the policy covers quite a lot of that. So thank you very much. Councillor Jane, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, I was just going to highlight the training as well as a really useful tool in terms of it's being rolled out to all staff to kind of raise awareness of inappropriate behaviours, and so that if they observe inappropriate behaviours, whether it's whoever that's from, a colleague, a member, or a third-party contractor, so they can raise concerns as well. So that's gone out to every member of staff, and then there's some more in-depth training for managers. So I think that will really help.
Thanks very much, Councillor Fairclough.
Thank you. Well, I think a lot of it really has been covered. I mean, I don't know, the papers I've got, there are some PDFs on them, but I can't seem to access them. But I've scrolled down. I'm assuming maybe you've included them in the report, which for me only came this morning. That's nobody else's fault but ours. So it may be covered in there, but you've obviously said that there are 10 points of benefit to hybrid working, which is good. But do you also put maybe that there will be a downside to hybrid working, or is there no downside? I mean, I'm thinking about, isolation. I think people often get an awful lot from working with other people, the natural sort of conversation that have, and in some ways may not realise that working at home is not necessarily the best thing for them. It may be more convenient in some ways. I understand that with childcare and, you're able to look after the children, but it could have a detrimental effect to later life. People become very isolated and then don't want to come in and mix. I just wondered if that was included. And also, obviously, there's a lot of, it's almost worrying, really. I know you're having to do it because of legislation, but all this about, we've got people having to do this. And then you've said you've not captured any of the information about whether these incidents are going on, and you're hoping to do that. It almost makes it sound like it's rife. I mean, do you have a lot of issues with bullying in Bolton?
Dawn?
I could come in on those 2 points, please. In terms of a downside to hybrid working, we're very clear in the change, well, in the policy, and we've reiterated it and strengthened the wording in some of the areas in the revised policy. Bolton's policy is that you have to be in the workplace the majority of the time. So if you're a 5-day-a-week worker, you have to be in the office for at least 3 days a week. So we're hoping that therefore we won't get people isolated and working from home with no contact with colleagues, because it is invaluable really to have that team environment and that support from your colleagues. I know we find that really important in HR. So hopefully we won't be in that situation, and managers are always encouraged, and it's reiterated in the policy, to keep in touch with staff regularly and to make sure, for example, we've put something in the policy this time just to strengthen the fact that cameras should be on in meetings, because then you can see you can read maybe the body language of the person to see if they're getting anxious, upset, that kind of thing. Whereas if people's cameras are off, you don't know that. So we've tried to sort of strengthen it in areas, but the fact that we have the majority of the time in the office will hopefully avoid people being isolated. In terms of incidents of bullying and harassment, we have very few incidents. Whether there are more than we're aware of, and some are dealt with them locally within services by managers, I would imagine there are some low-level issues that don't come through to us. But in terms of formal investigations and cases that we take forwards and are involved in HR, very, very few. Probably, less than 4 or 5 a year. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Dawn. Jen, did you want to just add something to that?
It was just to say as well, when we have new starters, we ask that they come in full time in the office, and sometimes team members have to come in more and aren't able to work at home if they're supporting new members of staff or apprentices. So there is that flexibility there to kind of flex the hybrid working arrangements in order to support staff. And it's in the policy as well that if there are issues with performance, or they think it's not working out in terms of well-being, then we can ask staff to come back into the office full time.
Right, thank you. Thanks very much. That's really very useful question, Hilary, and really informative answers there. I've certainly learned a bit about it myself there. Councillor Williamson.
Hi, yeah, most of the questions had been answered, especially by Dawn and Jane, so thanks very much for that. My question is based on the fact of, if there is incidences happening, what practices are we putting in place to kind of bring people together and discuss? Because sometimes, certainly, I found it's a bit of miscommunication. If I'm working with somebody younger, and as an example, I said something the other day about a cheeky monkey, and it was really taken to heart and very offensive. I found that I was on the cosh, but when I explained to the lady I didn't actually mean anything, and and we had that conversation together and we understood each other, it kind of made everything feel better. I just wondered, are we looking at like trauma-informed practice? Are we looking at restorative practice with the minor incidences to make sure that people understand each other better? Is there anything in the policy for that?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. We are encouraging managers within the training and the policy to resolve any issues that are raised at the lowest possible level, and without any movement into formal procedures. Sometimes it warrants that and it's the right thing to do, but where possible we would try and do it informally, and we can access things such as mediation, we can access one-to-one support for managers and staff members, and also bringing teams together as well, where there's perhaps some work needs to be done on the culture within a team to look at how that can be changed going forwards.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. And again, it's a really, really good point. So that, like informal mediation, where you might just have misunderstandings, or cultural or even age gaps can lead to those kind of misunderstandings, as we know. Okay, so I'm happy to approve those policy changes. Just one final thing to note: there are a couple more on the horizon. You'll have received, leaders will have received an email from Vicky about a corporate PDG to look at a couple more HR policies, which we would welcome further member involvement in that. So I think that date's been set, hasn't it, Vicky? Yeah, okay. Okay, so that concludes the meeting, and I hope you all get a chance to enjoy the sunshine today and you're not indoors all day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.